Welcome back. Double dipping today, trying to make up for lost time. Listen, I'm going to get right into my subject. People that murder people because they're upset about the way they run a company or their ideas or their beliefs is wrong. Period. This tool, this douchebag, I believe it's in New York. He's in prison now for killing the healthcare CEO. People like to make these people anti-heroes. They read their manifestos on the news. They read their names. I won't use this guy's name. This guy needs to rot in prison for the rest of his life. You don't get to go murder somebody on the street because you disagree with them. Listen, I have a big problem with the healthcare system in this country. I have said it for several years. It's gotten worse and worse. That's not the way to handle it. It's just not. This guy has fans. These women that follow him around and are in love with him and praise him and say his kids are better off, the healthcare guy's kids are better off without him. Those women are horrible people as well. That's not how you solve problems in a civilized society. This modern trend kind of goes back to Columbine with the two idiot kids. I won't use their names either. I'm not going to glorify people that murder people. Most of the time, it ends up being a murder-suicide. They take themselves out, they leave a manifesto for somebody to read, and they get famous, and they put cool pictures of them on the news. They make them look like heroes. They're not heroes. Now, if you're bullied or pushed around, of course I'm against that. That's awful. There are ways to deal with that. The healthcare CEO, you don't take a guy's life because you don't agree with the way he runs a company. That is not how we run things in a civilized society. That is how societies break down. Human history, it's a long history of solving our beefs violently. But as we supposedly progress and become more civilized, it's supposed to be more, let's sit and talk about this. Let's discuss it. Let's figure out a better way. Let's have somebody else start a health company that does it better. Let's figure out a way. Let's vote different people in that create different laws. Not murder. And then it drives me crazy when I watch these news people, the big news channels, and I'm not going to name any of them. You all know who they are. They read these manifestos as if it's some, the Gettysburg Address or something. It's not. It's people that want to have their grievances put out in front of all of us. Look how badly I was affected. This guy that killed the CEO was a rich kid. It's ridiculous. He has every benefit in life, and he does that. And I really hope he's in prison for the rest of his life. You don't get to do that. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. You get to. It's a free country. But I'd like to think that for the most part, I think 99.9% of the country would say that's not the way to solve things. And I know I've seen polls that don't show it that high, but I believe in people's hearts that they would say, yeah, we don't solve our problems by murdering somebody. Now, I'm not talking about serial killers that are put to death. I'm not, child molesters and rapists and scumbags society that get the death penalty. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about people, and this sometimes is not just, sometimes it's little things. People will go attack somebody else in their city, in their block, in their neighborhood, because they don't like something they said or disagreed with, and kill them or maim them. And it frustrates me every time I hear it happen, and every time the big news channels read their names, even though pretty much every psychiatrist and psychologist out there, or anybody with a conscience, would say, reading these people's names out loud, putting cool pictures of them on TV, reading their manifestos, creates more of them. It's a contagion. in society right now, that we decide we have to solve our problems so drastically that we have the right. I'm so aggrieved that I have the right to take that guy's life. I know there are probably some people that'll watch this that disagree with me and think this guy had it coming. The guy didn't have it coming. Maybe he should have been fired as CEO. Maybe they should change the way they do it. Now, part of the problem is our government has made it so that these insurance companies make ridiculous profits. For instance, let's say 15 years ago, I would go find my own insurance plan every year. I would find a fairly big deductible because I wasn't worried. I didn't want to have to pay $5,000 or $10,000 out of pocket, but I didn't want to have to pay $500,000 out of pocket if I got cancer or somebody in my family had a heart attack. I wanted to cover myself in drastic situations. And I could do that about 15 years ago for $200 to $300 a month. Just a general policy that covered me in extreme cases. Usually you would have some sort of prescription help. Prescriptions were not super expensive, co-pays at the doctor's office. Now, my policy I won't even say the president that brought it in. The guy that brought it in, the way it is now, my policy is over $1,800 a month. Now, I don't pay all that $1,800 because the government subsidizes it. Well, we are the government. The government is our taxes. Our tax dollars are what pays for everything in this country. So when they jack all these prices up and then say, we'll subsidize you, well, let's just pile it onto the debt. We're only $39 trillion in debt. So let's just keep doing that. When it was up to us, or a lot of people that would work for a company, they would get some sort of a health plan through their company. And I have not met a single person that thinks it's better now than it was then. These plans are out of control. I agree that the health system is broken, but I do not think murder is the answer. It's such a final thing. That guy took that dude from his little kids and his wife and his family. He didn't have the right to do that, especially a spoiled ass punk like him. And the fact that there are women that go and worship this guy, and it works the other way too. There are dudes that worship psycho chicks, I shouldn't say chicks. I say guys, chicks, dudes. I'm a 70s dude. I really mean no offense by that. That's just how I talk. I respect all women, all men, as long as they are good people. That guy is not a good person. So there are lots of guys that go, worship some woman who went to prison for whatever because she's hot. Apparently some of these women think this guy is hot, and that's a reason to excuse murder. If he was unattractive, I could almost promise you that he would have way fewer supporters. He would not have $1.5 million in GoFundMe money. The fact that too many people, not so many, because it's still a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of society that does these kinds of things, but it's too much. They think they can take it into their own hands because they feel like they're hurt or they were bullied, which, like I said, I am completely against. It's just not, we can't run society like that. We really can't. And I hope that this is what I said, a contagion that will pass, and we'll start figuring out a way to deal with these kinds of issues. Most people, almost all people, when they have a problem with a health insurance company or a hospital or a car dealership or a restaurant, they deal with it in a normal, civilized way. They don't go attack the people because They feel aggrieved. As far as I know, this particular dude didn't even have anything to do with this company. I, we're a nation of laws. I don't agree with every law we have on the books, and it varies from state to state and city to city and county to county. But I do believe if we're going to have a society that works, that we have to abide by laws, and we cannot turn scumbag murderers into heroes or anti-heroes, or however you want to see it. It's one thing to look back at, say somebody makes a Western about Jesse James and the Jesse James gang, which they did a lot of bad stuff. Or Billy the Kid, or whoever, something that happened 100, 150 years ago, and kind of make a cool movie about it. That's not the same as doing that currently as whatever the bad thing is happening. When I see a news, I don't watch the news a whole lot anymore, to be honest. I have just gotten so disappointed by it. When I was a kid and a young adult, the newscasters said the news. You didn't know which way they leaned politically. My parents watched Walter Cronkite, and trust me, my parents would not have agreed with Walter Cronkite's political views, but he did the news. He's put the news out there, and then you get to decide. I never felt like, and I was pretty young when he was doing the news, so we could name more current people: Peter Jennings, Tom Brokaw, Dan Rather, many years ago, not current Dan Rather. They read the news, and then you got to decide what you thought about the news. And now everything comes with a spin. If you watch whatever channel, they've got their spin, they lean a certain way, they put that perspective on it. In fact, for a long time, I would go back and forth between the extremes on both sides, watching the different news channels. And you would hear something over here that you would not hear there, and vice versa. So if you only listen to one of these channels, you would not get the whole truth. You would get their misguided or skewed, or whatever you want to call it, slanted view of the news. And it's on both sides. I'm not saying anybody's blameless here. It is very hard to find unbiased news that you can just look at the news and it tells you what happened that day, and then you make your own decisions about what you think about that. That seems to be a lost art, and I don't think we're better off because of that either. It's a bit of a rant. It's something I've thought a lot about. I've always been a guy that, especially as I mature and get older, that I try to solve my problems in a civil, peaceful way. Sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes somebody's just determined to push it as far as they can. It doesn't happen very often. I don't run into it very often, but every once in a while, you can't reason with somebody. And still doesn't excuse that kind of violence. Trust me, that's not what I'm saying. When I was young, where I grew up, fist fighting, getting in fights after school was a thing. It was very common. It never, ever led to anything more than the fight right then, and then it was over. And a lot of times, the two participants, and it wasn't always guys, a lot of times it was girls too. A lot of times they'd be friends afterwards. I'm not suggesting that we all go out and fist fight in society. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm hoping we can get back to having civil discussions, because you're on this side of politics and I'm on that side. I'm frankly not really on either side. I'm kind of in here. Those two sides used to be able to talk. I saw it all the time when I was younger. Well, all the time is a over-exaggeration, because over-exaggeration. It's an exaggeration. I don't need the over. because most people didn't talk about it. But when they did, it was civil, calm. I see discussions. In fact, one got started a little bit here in my own backyard the other day, because in our family we have people with different points of view. There are a lot of people here, and I put an end to it real quick. I said, we're not talking about this here. We're not going to be arguing. We're here to have fun and hang out as a family and enjoy each other. People we don't get to see very often. We're not doing this. 30 years ago, those discussions could have happened and it would have been fine. Maybe you get a little like, I'm very adamant about what I believe, but it doesn't go farther than that. Now I see it. I've seen it many times. I used to go to bars a lot when I was on the road. And most people, in fact, there are bars that say, you're not allowed to talk politics or religion in here. Every once in a while it happens. Most of the time it turns out not very nice. It gets pretty nasty if there are people on opposite sides. Now, I did see one, and I think I've mentioned this in one of my videos. I was playing poker in Oklahoma City a couple of years ago. And there was a guy, I don't know, probably around 50, and then a younger dude that was probably in his mid-20s. And they were on complete opposite sides of the political spectrum. They had a discussion, and several of us at the table said, guys, let's not talk politics here. But I will give these two guys credit. They had a discussion. They stayed calm. They respected each other's views. At the end of the conversation, they shook hands. It was over. I was so impressed that afterwards I found both of them and said, hey, I just want to tell you that was really cool. You don't see that much anymore. You don't see people being able to just disagree and have a civil conversation. I've seen so many where people are spitting mad. Like, they might not punch each other, but they're like, they look crazy. They're so enraged that somebody doesn't see things their way. I see this a lot on college campuses now. There's usually only one thought process that's allowed. College used to be a place to have differing opinions. Let's get together, let's talk, let's figure out. I am not afraid to have somebody challenge my views. Not at all. I believe strongly in the way I believe, my morals, my ethics, my upbringing, my relationship to God, my politics, whatever. I am secure enough in it that I don't have a problem with somebody telling me, oh, I don't agree with that. I think this. And I'll listen to them, no problem. And I might say, well, I think you're wrong there, but you know, that doesn't mean we can't be friends. I hope we can get back to that. This video wasn't going to be this long. But when I get going on these things, I can talk for a long time about it, but I don't want to just sit and repeat myself. So, I'm looking forward to seeing whatever comments come from this. I think probably most of you, whoever you are, would agree that violence is certainly extreme violence, like the ultimate violence, is not the way to solve societal problems or arguments between friends or groups in a neighborhood or whatever. You know, I have beefs with people and I talk to them about it. If I have some problem with a friend or a family member, I will bring it up in a nice way. It can get a little heated. My dad and I, you know, were having the religious discussions in the hot tub last night, and I wouldn't say it got heated. We get adamant. We're Norwegian. Our blood gets going, you know, and but it always ends awesome. They left this morning, gave them big hugs, told them I love them. I was so happy they were here. I so enjoyed the visit, and I used to enjoy talking to people. Sorry, I got a notification here about all kinds of things. I used to, like I said, religion and politics just didn't come up much 30, 40 years ago, but now it's just ubiquitous. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. If you got the answer, let me know. So, second video of the day. I think I will call it there. Like I said, I could go on for easily another hour about this. I may start doing some longer, like really long, like hour-long videos and really delving into things more. I have a lot of thoughts on a lot of things. I have a lot of stories. You know, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, it was just such a cool time, and we had so much fun. I feel blessed to live where I live. I feel blessed to grow up where I grew up. Norway, Canada, the USA, I love them all. The 250th anniversary is coming up. It's a big deal. I do not see a whole lot of celebration going on. It makes me sad. I, for one, love this country. God bless America. God bless you. Peace. Love.